Trivia games. They're almost like giving me a day off. I stumble through some questions in recording that I couldn't reasonably answer anyways, and then all of the footage of the game looks the same, and there's not many features to show off, so I just get to zip through things. Still, there are some interesting things to point out in Quiz Avenue II. First, it is one of the cheapest, most accessible PC Engine games. Nobody wants it. In fact, it is so undesirable that my copy came with my PC Engine Duo as a giveaway test disc to make sure that the system worked. Still, I didn't waste Quiz Avenue II. I used music from it as the closing theme for PC Engine Power. Quiz Avenue II offers two different modes of play. The first is Quiz Quest II, a sequel to Quiz Quest in the original Quiz Avenue. Here, the son and daughter of the hero from the first Quiz Quest are tasked with protecting the kingdom from the encroaching monsters, because the kingdom doesn't have anybody else who can do it. This mode allows for 2 players, but player 1 is always the son and player 2 is always the daughter. You proceed through a series of levels that consist of small game boards. You're presented with 4 cards, which you pick from, and they have a number 1 to 3. You move that many spaces and are confronted by someone who wants to ask you some trivia questions. There are sometimes special spaces, like here you've got your choice of a genie's bottle that will give you a small power-up for the next quiz. You could reduce the number of possible answers, or you could get it to tell you which one was correct after you missed something. Not the most useful of power-up there. The way quizzing works on the normal stages are you're confronted by someone, and they might have a topic that they prefer, but they won't solely ask you questions about that topic. The stuff guy asked me questions about Japanese cigarette brands, for example. And this kid asked me questions about Japanese pop music. You have to answer a certain number of questions correct before they'll let you continue, and that's represented by the dots in the upper left-hand corner. You have a certain number of wrong answers that you're allowed, and that's the dots in the lower left corner. There's a bar in the upper right that represents the time that you have to answer the question. If that runs out, then the quizzer will move on to another question, and there is no immediate penalty for you. So if you've got something that you've got no clue on, you can let it pass. The catch is, the quizzer has a limited number of questions that they'll go through, and if that runs out, then you automatically lose. So you can't pass on questions forever. If you succeed, you go on to your next turn, draw another card, move that many spaces, and quiz again. If you fail, then it's back to the start of this region. If you reach the last square of the game board, then you have a kind of boss fight, but first you get to pick your category. Not that you can really tell what the categories are until you select one. I guess over time you'll learn. The dragon was for cartoons, and the stars was for movies, music, and television. If you get these questions right, then you move on to the next region. That's how Quiz Quest II works. The other game in Quiz Avenue 2 is F1 mode, and this is the party mode. Every stage is a different race in the F1 circuit, and up to 5 people can compete in the quizzing here. You keep answering questions until you get too many wrong, and then you're out of the race. Once a winner has been determined, either by being the last person standing, or everyone getting eliminated, then you get points based on your race standing. You get points based on where you finished in the race, and then additional points based on how quickly you answered questions, then lose points for your incorrect answers. As you progress through the F1 season, you are allowed more and more incorrect answers during a race. In the first race, you're knocked out if you get anything wrong. And then later on you're allowed to get 2 incorrect answers, and more after that. So does anyone remember Quiz Avenue 2? And the answer is not really. Like I said, this is one of the most undesirable PC Engine games out there. And as a quiz game, it does exactly what you need it to. But 35 years later, it's basically reduced to a game that exists. Quiz games might have the shortest shelf life of anything I talk about when I go through a system library, between the questions becoming outdated, and there's never a shortage of trivia games out there. I'll give Quiz Avenue II full marks for having a good presentation, and I appreciate the adventure mode allowing 2 players. But in the end, it's a quiz game from 1991. It's always going to be limited by that.